55,000 was the attendance at NAB 2025, and 26% was foreign. And what do you think was the top country that sent people to the NAB this year, other than the U.S.?
South Korea.
Canada.
China.
I'm going
Canada.
to say
Canada. Really?
Canada, Brazil, China, Mexico. Yeah.
Wow.
So, uh, I don't know. The attendance was a little lower this year, I think, for several reasons. The economy, a lot of companies got scared, and on the floor, I thought it was interesting that the number of new items was reduced compared to normal years. A lot of manufacturers just didn't want to put the money out to bring things out as yet. Maybe next year. According to the NAB, April 18 will be the date next year, and it will all be in Central Hall, they say, radio and television. So, well, one of the great things that were worth mentioning about, of course, the NAB was pounding its own chest. The president of the NAB, Curtis Legate, was talking about how broadcasters play a vital role in their communities and localism, right? Well,
Okay.
don't get to see too much of that these days. But the NAB is behind 6 priorities, he said. First of all, modernizing antiquated broadcast rules concerning ownership. That's their top priority. Second one, keeping AM radio in cars. And that's a fight the NAB has with the consumer technology folks, CTA. Then there is supporting next-gen television, uh, preventing harmful changes to advertising tax deductibility. I'm sure that affects all of you very greatly. Um, the NAB is opposed to the new performance tax on local radio. And the last one, protecting the broadcaster's content in local materials. And I don't know, that'll be a very interesting one to see if the NAB actually helps nudge the big chains, the consolidators and such, into doing something more local. There was on the floor a big uh, uh, churn of people when Penn and Teller showed up to get their award. In fact, very few people got in, relatively speaking. There was a flood of people standing there in West Hall that couldn't get in, and that was probably an indication of how popular Penn and Teller are. Another great thing that I found, don't know if you found it, was some great apple strudel and pretzels in the Lavo booth. And that was a great temptation not to gorge out on the goodies. There are a number of booths that had little bits and pieces through the show, a couple drinks here and there, but it wasn't a huge bunch of food on the floor. Um, so we had Monday night, we had our little pizza get together, and I was hoping that we would get a nice group, and we did. Um, I thought that was really nice. And when we uh, got all that together, and it wasn't as many, perhaps, as we might have had, but on the other hand, it was all a good group, and we had a bunch of folks and a good time. And so that was our fun on Monday evening. Let's see, what else did I want to mention? Oh, I, I I read the blurb from TV Tech, and it mentions that they issued awards for Best of Show. Now, I'm just going to throw this out. Maybe someone wants to make a comment. How many awards do you think should be best of show?
One.
That's a good number. Anyone else? I mean, after all, there are different aspects. There's audio, there's video, there's streaming, there's intercoms, console. I mean, there are, several different categories. But Future, they issued 83 Best of Show awards
Oh.
on the TV side.
Oh, just TV?
83.
How many shows were there altogether?
Right. The thing most people don't know, unless you were keyed into it, is that it costs about $600 to nominate your product for Best of Show. So if you figure that there are 83 that made it to the finish line, and let's say that there were 4 possibilities in each category, multiply 250 times $600, and NAB wasn't the only the only group making money during the NAB show. So I just thought that was an interesting thing. I saw a few things that I thought were very interesting and informative. Yeah, there was AI all over the place. There was AI that you could use for archiving podcasts. For instance, Stream Guys had a use for AI and also Axel.io. Sam had been with us week before last, right? And if you have a archive of programs, podcasts, they could go back, 6 months or 20 years or whatever, and you set AI to it, it'll pull out all the keywords and phrases and index it for you so you know when it was that a certain topic was covered or a certain talent or something like that. I think the other side of the story, though, there is a lawmaker, I forgot to write their name down, but they have introduced into the Congress a No Fakes Act because the AI fakes are getting worse and worse and worse. In the last few weeks, there have been a few very high-profile people, politicians or actors, whose face has been AI'd into something that they didn't even say or would never say. And so it's something we got to watch out for.
Would you mean that AI is getting good enough to do that now?
Oh yes, oh yeah. These deep fakes are very good. Sadly, they can mimic not only It's almost like you had your camera on and we could see who you were, and then AI would grab that, and then you could start talking to us about all the wonderful reasons that you love rock and roll.
Yeah.
But seriously, the concept of AI, it's as I talk to the different companies, here's what came through to me. 40 years ago, 30 years ago, automation started to become very common in broadcast. If we started to bring pre-taped music or programming and systems that would sequence commercials and time checks and weather reports and all that. And it was a great time for broadcasters to use this technology to improve the presentation. And I remember visiting a good friend in Nashville, it was some years back, and he was doing the afternoon show on a popular station. And he had going at the same time the music. He had traffic reporter coming in from the air helicopter. He had a report from the fairgrounds. He had a caller calling up with a request and a comment, his spot breaks, and of course himself. And he used the automation, and it was a seamless flow of program parts. And if I were not standing there, seeing how he had done this from 5 different sources, yeah, I would have thought it was all live. But no, he had racked this thing up to make it really sound local and important. On the other hand, you know, and I know, many, many stations out there are on automation, automated fully. Nobody in the building. It just runs and runs and runs. And in some cases, I've seen stations where a fire broke out in a particular neighborhood, and the station for that particular city just playing the hits. So now we have AI. AI can be a good thing. As I say, it can go through your archives and index them for you. AI can help you to bring things together. Uh, yes, Chat GPT and uh, the other similar AI products that will scour the web and answer questions. You know, that's good. But then if you sit and you realize if AI doesn't have everything, it makes up references. It makes up statements that are not true. And so you have to watch what they bring back to you very carefully to see if it's worth repeating, much less holding on to, Rich. Uh, and that's my thought about AI. Next gen TV is the next biggest thing that you saw all over the floor. They're pushing harder and harder, along with the NAB, to get rid of ATSC 1 and replace it with ATSC 3 everywhere. There are some benefits. Again, things you can do. If you are running an ATSC3, you've got data, you've got video streams you can run. There's all sorts of possibilities, as Dana showed us. Right now, he's running 6 different television stations in his bandwidth. And if everybody was running their own ATSC3, you could have anything from radio in cars to TV streams or weather, data, whatever. And in fact, the HC2 or H2C company, which one is it? They have already petitioned the commission that with their 5G next gen, that they don't have to do video, just data streams. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out. So I've got a few videos, a couple pictures that I took, but I'll toss the floor open for a moment to see how many of you might have a comment. Those of you that have been to Las Vegas this year, and anyone want to tell me what they saw as the top best of show? Your award for best of show, what would that be? I know you were there, Peter, because I saw you. I saw you live, not your uniform.
For me, the best of the show would be Broadcasters General Store. They had that replacement for the CD player.
Okay.
Optimized Media Group guys did that thing. And it grabs the metadata, and when you play a song, it'll put it into your network area storage. So that was my best of show.
Very good. Anyone else want to contribute there?
I wasn't there, but I noticed that a lot of the broadcast vendors, especially the console manufacturers and whatnot, everybody now has a methodology for remote operation, remote studio in the cloud, studio in your cloud, DJ from his house, and from things we've seen here on Thursdays, the fact that the radio station itself can be in the cloud. You don't actually need a building anymore to have it in. I'm wondering how much all of this technology is kind of pushing against NAB's localism argument that that they have been trotting out for 20 years, and not only is there nobody in the building, but there's no building anymore. And I'm wondering how many of these that you passed in the radio area are basically catering to nobody comes to the radio station anymore. And like I said, as an extension of that, there is no radio station anymore.
Well, you make a good point, and yes, this was something that I saw in a number of booths. There were several manufacturers that really didn't have anything new. Although I thought Logitech has a newer digital version of what they're doing. If you're on the other side, uh, uh, Arrakis had some. Oxygen 3000 console from Axel Audio caught my eye because among things that they did, they integrated their telephone system into the console. So you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about mixed Spanish. You don't have to worry about who's on line 3, letting the talent know what topic is up. It was very, very well integrated. And I thought that was a very nice thing to see. And it comes in an 8 or a 16 or I think a 32 wide console. And like so many others, like the Axia, you can push a button and it will rearrange all the different modules, all the different pots to a different input and mic or line and label it. And you can set up, I would say for, let's say, university station maybe, or some local facilities, you could have 4, 5, 6 different layouts. And depending on who is on the air, well, bing, 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 you set it up. But then again, how many stations are a little more than one microphone, an automation system, and maybe a CD player these days? And then there are consoles that are only 4 pots wide, if you're really trying to get there. And there are still some analog consoles. Not a lot, but they're analog and they're there. And you can get an LPFM on a console for $1,000 to $1,500, somewhere in there. Now, why would you do that? Because you don't want a Mackie. Mackie could be a very good console, could be very useful, but it doesn't have the mic muting and it has too many little knobs on there. And it's not designed so that the talent can make the most of their brain power with whatever they're doing. That's my thought on that. Now, I mentioned the strudel and pretzels. Lavo is a German company that I don't know how familiar you are with it yet. They're just making their way in. They do some huge installations in Europe, and they're scaling some of it back. They started with that Relay, which was the touchscreen console that we would have here, for instance. But I thought their new overall encompassing home app was very interesting. And here's Al Reynolds from Lavo, and I'd like to let you listen to him for just a moment, and I'll share the sound as well. Well, here we are at the Lavo booth, and Al Reynolds is with us, and we're going to talk about the home packaging, how you bring all the systems together. Yes?
Thank you, Barry. Hello, everybody. So my name is Al. I work here as a project engineer for Lavo, particularly on the radio side. And in the radio world for Lavo, we sort of have 3 components to our systems. We have the human interfaces, which are the control surfaces, our Diamond, our Crystal, and our VizTools software UI interface. Then we also have the hardware. So this is our power core. This is a hardware mixing engine. It also has all of your I/O flexible. And it's also the control system for your mixer. And what we've done this year is we've taken the control system and we've virtualized it. So we are now offering it as a software application in our home platform. And so home is our platform for discovering your physical broadcast infrastructure and defining the virtual broadcast infrastructure that you need. So what we have here is a PowerCore app. This is the control system for this console, and it's connected to a DSP application that provides all of the audio processing. And what's really, really fancy for us is that DSP application that comes from our MC Squared consoles. So we get to share all of the same incredible algorithms and processing from our large format professional audio consoles. The other part that we are introducing this year is our home workspaces application, which are web applications that we use to connect and control the broadcast infrastructure. So that includes a video monitor app, so you can see all of your video feeds in a single web view that's responsive, works on mobile apps, etc. As well as a commentary app for remote contributions. So you can get video feeds back and forth, you can get your audio feeds, your talkback, your mixing, local low latency monitoring. So it's a really powerful solution as we work with large broadcasters that want to provide broadcast infrastructure across countries to wherever their talent is.
So very scalable from small to large.
Exactly. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Really
Thanks.
appreciate it, Barry.
So that was the point. I thought just what you were mentioning, Ed. You take all the features in these big consoles that people are spending $100,000 or more, and you can bring it down to a small console and still have all those features.
Yeah, so I think I'd mentioned in other occasions. So Lavo is the audio infrastructure that we had put in at Sirius XM when we moved from our first generation of studios in 2000 through our studio rebuilds going through the 2020s and beyond. So Lavo is what we have. And I will tell everybody here on the call, because Lavo has heard me say this before, you can't possibly spend more money on audio infrastructure and consoles than when you buy a Lavo, because it's very expensive stuff, and it takes, a company like XM that's got, a lot of money in the bank to be able to afford these things. The other thing is, in recent years with Lavo, because of the rapid advance of technology, as you just saw, they're moving what were their hardware engines now implemented in software on servers. You go out and, it used to be you buy a console, it was certainly good for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, or at the college radio station I worked for 40 years before we finally retired a Gates Diplomat console. But it's very expensive stuff, and with the evolution, they're changing things every 5 years, and it's very hard to write checks that fast because the engine, like from a manufacturer's point of view, I can see why you would do it. Hardware changes, keeping inventory, hardware is no longer manufactured. It's very hard to support your customers beyond 5 years, certainly not, in the days when we used to have these things forever. But the one other thought I will throw out is perhaps you saw fewer products because so many of them are being moved and implemented in software. There's just fewer widgets to put out on the desk as you walk down the aisles.
Oh, sure. There are now stations that are little more than a computer and a microphone. And that's quite true. But you're right. Klotz was one of the first ones. And now Lavo.
That's what we had first. We replaced the Klotz with the Lavo.
And you're probably very happy that you were able to do that.
Well, we had the Klotz running for 16 years. It was fine German steel.
Well, nice. We had them out here at a Clear Channel facility, and unfortunately, Klotz did an update on a floppy and actually sent out to the stations viruses. And, we had something like 248 viruses throughout the Novell network. It was not fun. I'll just leave it that way. But now Lavo is taking the very things that you mentioned here, Ed, and they're starting to scale them down. Maybe not as fast as someone in LPFM would want to see, but they're scaling them down, and they're getting into smaller and smaller especially as the software as an app packages that you can bring in. And I saw probably, oh, I don't know, at least half a dozen consoles. In fact, I think the Logitech was one where you use the touch screen. Oxygen, the Axle was the same way. Touch screen, you could watch the either motorized pot move, or if it didn't do that, there was a light that said somebody else took control of this pot, and you knew that where the pot was sitting was not necessarily the level that you were getting. So very, very interesting, I thought. Another interesting thing, and it's very small, but very nice. Our friends at Broadcast Depot have come out with some mic muffs here, and they do not color the audio. At least when I listened, it was very clean, and the high end came through, wasn't muted. The low ends were there, and Mary posed for me. And I don't know if Mary's with us today. I think she might be traveling, as many have been. I know Nautel is spending all of today in breakdown. So I think after the show closed yesterday, they all went out and caroused until the middle of the night, and now they're sort of trying to put things in boxes and ship them out. But I'm sure we'll hear from Mary next week. Another thing that I think was important, how can I put this kindly? I have a lot of problems with EAS. I have problems with the way it was put together. It might have been a good choice how they did it in 1997, but EAS is a disaster today. And largely due to a certain manufacturer who tried to block everybody else. And we could do a whole hour on that alone, where it held things back. For instance, there should never have been a zombie alert, because in order to save 2 bits, one manufacturer refused to allow software to include a year. And so any jerk could go on YouTube and pull up an EAN, sadly, and broadcast it, because, well, if they get the right date, it'll run. I think that the FIPS codes were inane, not just stupid, inane. You're on a highway, Highway 80, you're driving through Ohio, and the radio station says, "There's a tornado alert in Harris County." I don't live in Ohio. Am I driving into the tornado? Is the tornado coming right behind me to scoop me up? Or am I, going to make a mess? EAS should, I maintain, should tell people the cities where these events are. And okay, that's a little more complex than throwing 6 FIPS codes for a county. But if you're going to help your listeners do something, that's the way you should. Now, DASTEC has a feature that you don't find elsewhere. If you have an alert or a test, you can postpend a file to it. This alert brought to you by George's Carpet Sales. Or you could do another language. This is a weekly test in the Navajo language, or Indian or whatever, Hindu. Another thing you can do is you can prepend a file in a DASTEC, all based on what the alerts are, and this following alert is brought to you as a public service, and all these things can be done, but they don't migrate to all the different EAS boxes, as is pretty obvious here. DASTEC has got a software feature coming out, by the way, that you will hear. It's called Leap, and it will download the settings from a Sage and upload them to a DAS deck so you don't have to program the DAS deck to keep doing what you're doing. And I think that's a pretty decent deal. Now we talk about EAS and the fellows at Innovonics. Well, I've got the 677 that Innovonics brought out, triple tuner, because so many people tell me that their old TFT tuners are dying, or the little pocket radios that they hooked up to their EAS. So maybe this is something that you'd like to know about. We are at the Innovonics booth, and here's our friend, Gary Lerman. Gary,
Hey,
good
Barry.
afternoon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the NAB Show 2025.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
You've got a new EAS triple tuner to talk about this year, don't you?
That's right. We've got a Model 677. It's a triple tuner. It has 3 distinct tuners in it. Each one can be set up to receive AM, FM, or weather band. It's got streaming capabilities, so remotely you can listen to a stream of any one of the tuners, of the 3 tuners available. We've got history plots, alarms, supports SNMP, and it's primarily designed as an EAS tuner. That pretty much all stations, I think, are required to interface with the EAS system. And but you can also use it as a remote monitoring device as well. So it's got in multiple uses. Nice half rack size package, so it doesn't take up a lot of space. And it's got a real nice sensitive tuner in it, so it'll pull in those weak signals as well. So give it a try. I hope you like it.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now, one of the things that I've discovered, maybe you know this too, I've talked about it, and that is that there are a tremendous number of stations all across the country where the engineers get together on Monday and they sign the station log. The only problem is that they never, ever listen to know that the EAS has actually been broadcast. I've seen stations where the EAS was not put in the chain the way it's designed so that you have to go through it, but they bring it up on a pot. I've seen stations that have bypassed their EAS for one reason or another and never remembered to put them back in service. Little XLRs are connected to each other in the back. And the DAS Tech, which I didn't know, he has a feature in there that you can use a 4th input, your own station, and then you can double check. It will report that it ran and heard the EAS test or alert. Something worth thinking about. Something that you might need, something that might work for you at a given time.
Of course, the triple tuner folks misspelled monaural.
Did they really?
They did.
Well, that's funny. That's funny. All right.
Which triple tuner is that that it's misspelled?
The 677, your camera's off. The one we just showed you here.
Is that the Innovonics? I just tuned in a little bit ago.
EAS.
There it is. Oh yeah. Rich, you get the award for picking up the mono-oral. Very good. Very good. Okay. Another thing I thought was interesting, and that had to do with transmitters and transmissions. You may remember BW Broadcast. And if you knew Roger and Scott, you knew that things sort of went haywire there. Roger, as the story goes, fell out a window And
Was he
And so-
Russian?
I'm sorry?
Was he Russian?
No, but he apparently knew some Russians, from what I was able to learn. And then Scott got COVID, and Scott passed away. And so, for those of you that were wondering, what happened to the company, it went into a legal limbo for a couple of years while the lawyers fought it out. And eventually, Roger's family was granted the trademarks and such from BW Broadcast and the old equipment. And so they were there at the show. But some of the other folks from the company founded a company called Aqua Broadcast. And what's interesting not only is the transmitter I'm about to show you, but David Reeves, our friend David Reeves, has put together an updated digital version of the Ariane audio processor. And here we are with Brendan Lofty at the Aqua Broadcast booth. And Brendan, you've got some real nice new features in your transmitter to show us, right?
Yeah, Barry, thank you. We've recently, on all our 2U and 3U transmitters, which range in power from 300 watts through to 3 kilowatts, added for free a backup power supply included, installed into the product, ready to go if something happens with your power supply. In this particular product, we have 2 AC inputs. You can have them on the same line or one on your regular AC line and the other connected to a UPS. If something happens, the other power supply will take over. You'll get an email notification about it. We've also just introduced the audio player, which has a USB or a local audio backup source. And in the next couple of weeks, we will have a shoutcast and icecast stream input to act as either a source, depending on the location, or as a backup audio source with an arm modulation failover system.
And of course, there's a web browser that runs the whole thing.
Yep, the whole thing is run through here. You can do it through your mobile phone. Absolutely anything, upload audio files, do a software update. Even if the transmitter is the other side of the world, it can be done.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
If this works. And here we have our friend David Reeves, live in Las Vegas.
Hello.
David, you've got a brand new audio processor. What, the Zen 10?
It is an AGC, a stereo AGC, and it's part of the Zen level line that I've just created. And the name comes from the idea that Zen means to be able to do something without doing something. And so this processor has the windowing type of release system that allows the audio to go through without being processed a lot of the time. And that's what I've implemented here. And this is a 10-band device. It actually has 10 processors that works over 5 bands, left and right channels. And you can also set up each of the bands, each of the 5 bands, to be stereo linked or a stereo matrix, left plus right, left minus right. So you could use 5 bands and have one of them be a matrix, or all of them, or none of them, and the others however else you want them. It's totally flexible.
Your old processor, the Ariane, was a great transparent piece of audio that really kept high quality going through, and I'm sure that's what you've built into this one.
Well, what I did was I went back to the pre-Ariane designs and started examining why this hysteresis windowing system is so good. So I went back and examined the original patents for the CBS Audimax, which is where the design was first implemented. And I decided I was going to reproduce the Audimax as faithfully as possible in DSP, and then see what its weaknesses and strengths were, and then work on those. And that's what I did with this. I took the Audimax idea of using release gating, and then the platforming concept, where you have you make a decision based upon where the audio is at the moment and where it was a brief time ago. So you have a look at the present and a brief history, and you compare the two. And if the two are very similar, then that tells you that the audio is in a range of density that probably doesn't need any control. But if it goes outside of that range, that is, if the present audio is considerably different from what it was in the recent history, then you will make a change. And by making these changes, you can alter the gain of the band and then stop. So the audio comes in, it finds its range, and then as it comes out, it leaves the microdynamics completely intact. So,
Sounds like an intelligent way to do it.
well, it's the system from the Audimax, and that's just what I did here, but in multiple bands, and it's going to be a pretty cool implementation. I think people will find it very useful for a lot of different purposes.
Great. Thank you, David.
Yep.
So there we have now, Richard, did you ever use the Ariane?
I have an analog one.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm still running it on WWTR. I love it. I wish I could find another one.
Well, now you can get one from David. By the way, if you were wondering why that transmitter was sitting on a tabletop that way in the processor, Aqua's shipment from England got held up in Nashville and was only delivered yesterday afternoon. So they were really at a disadvantage in terms of having the booth there.
Of course, David had to name it something other than his wife for this
Yes.
new one, because you can only have one wife.
Yeah, because he and Jim Husey sold the Ariane to BW Broadcast. Yeah.
Right.
Did you use an Ariane at all, Rich?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to ask.
We had a bunch
But,
of Bloomberg, but they got rid of them. I don't know why.
Probably.
But Jim Eustace was one of our chief engineers at WOR.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mentioned Penn and Teller. That was an award that they got from the NAB, 50 years that they've been going. And I guess the show at the Rio is, 18 years or something like that? So anyway, they're very, very popular. That was one of the presentations I would have liked to have been able to get in to see. I did get into the Nautel place. Did that come up? No, that probably didn't come up. I was able to go to the Nug on Sunday morning and see what they were talking about and how they were trying to finesse the AUI issue. Jeff was there, and of course, when you deal with Mr. Welton, you know that you're dealing with the smart guy. So that was good. Another paper I wished I had been able to get to, but was unable to get to, had to do with the HEBA antenna that our friend Grady has been working on so diligently for the past several years. And David Maxon made a presentation. And Grady, are you with us to tell us a little bit about that?
Why, yes, I am. And I've pretty much fully recovered from the trip because I had to get back the very next day. Life has its important high points. And for me, a really important high point, Neil's laughing. I love it. Life has its high points. And for me, it was that Todd Rundgren is doing a tour right now, a very short tour, and what he and the people on stage are doing is celebrating the life of Burt Bacharach. And all the songs they're doing are Bert's songs. Todd only sings about 7 or 8 songs, and he leaves the stage if he's not actually there, because there are so many amazing talents on the stage, including the guy who plays piano and synthesizer, toured with Bert and Dionne Warwick and others for literally decades. And now he's at the center of putting this together, so you can imagine the high quality. Well, guess what? I thought that was more important than the NAB. Sorry. Neil's a music guy. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, yes, David Maxson started working with us about a year ago when my preaching for over a decade that conservation of energy means that if you have an antenna that's less than half the size of another antenna, and yet your antenna puts the same signal on the ground a kilometer away, measured with the same FIM at the same power, then there's this thing called conservation of energy that comes into play, and you have to ask the question, this is a smaller antenna. A smaller antenna would not be as efficient putting energy out to a distance. More of it would go into the sky. So if you're matching the field intensity at a kilometer of a tower 3 to 4 times as tall, something is going on. And I kept telling people it's because I believe the elevation pattern of the HEBA is a lot more flat-topped. There's a lot less energy in the sky. But the investors who had gotten us to the point where we had a working antenna had pretty much run out of money that they could invest. And we were at a point where unless we could get some money so that we could do those tests, we were kind of dead in the water. I sold a piece of property I inherited from mom and dad in Florida, got enough money. I rented a helicopter for like 2 hours, and I sent my FIM 4100 back to Potomac for calibration right before this. And David Maxson provided a spectrum analyzer from Enritsu and one of those shielded Scott loop antennas. And we found a way to take the loop off the back of the 4100 and put it on a 5-foot extension of 16 conductor flat cable and not affect its calibration. And we flew it on the helicopter, and we flew that path. And I'll just tell you that right behind my head, just by this ear, that is a quarter wave tower at 970 with a kilowatt in it. And now the place just to the right of my antenna is the HEBA antenna with a kilowatt into it. We flew for an hour and a half. We got these amazing measurements, but when I talked about this the other day, we hadn't done any kind of analysis on them yet, so I didn't have anything to show you. I recorded David Maxson's presentation.
And the other thing is just a teaser on something else that we've done, and that is the vertical pattern measurements. Thanks to Grady Moats, who sponsored the helicopter, we did some measurements at 1 kilometer altitude above the base of the antenna of the HEBA, and 8 miles away, conveniently, there was a quarter wave tower at also 1 kilowatt. And we did measurements of both with 2 sets of equipment. I know you're not supposed to use 2, you use 1 or 3, but we used 2 sets of equipment, separate antennas, and that way we confirmed that we weren't getting equipment malfunctions. And if you look at the orange dotted line, that's the F theta curve for the quarter wave tower. And you can see that the actual vertical radiation in different directions straddles that curve. So there's another example of how that theta is not worst case, it's kind of an estimate that they've been using since the tables were created in 1938. The blue curve is the F theta equation that we use to get the HEBA approved. And the measurements show us that we're way below that in vertical radiation, which is a real, for some of us, it's a real surprise. For others of us, it's what the HEBA design has been all about, even when it was a cross-field antenna. So this is very intriguing because if you had, let's say, 400 watts at night on your license and you had a HEBA, we have more work to do to prove this, but we think that you could add about 9 dB to that and have 3 kilowatts at night instead and still protect the station you're supposed to be protecting. So that's kind of looking forward at some of the homework that we have to perhaps even exploit some additional features of the HEBA. And with that, I'd just like to acknowledge folks who have supported my preparation of this paper, and see Kurt Gorman in the Phase Tech booth. There will be some materials there if you're interested, or check out Worldwide Antenna Systems. So also the folks from Worldwide Antenna Systems and Grady Motes are here today if you want to speak to them after class. Thank you.
All right.
Can y'all hear me talk?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to add a couple of things. We only had 20 minutes, as did everyone, and David wanted to finish early enough that people could ask a couple of questions. This blue dashed line at the bottom, interestingly enough, he just put that on there. These are measurements that we made with a drone and an antenna package that we designed 3.5 years ago. We did this, but because our drone license didn't let us go above 500 feet over a near obstacle, we weren't able to get more than about a half wavelength from the antenna, so we weren't out of the near field. And so the measurements, although they were a nice clue that something was going on, they couldn't really be trusted by the FCC, so we had to keep going, and we found another way to resolve that. The second thing, though, is these little plus signs down here. That is where both of these curves, this is the equivalent of the measurements on the ground at a kilometer. And you'll notice that the curve from the HEBA and the curve from the quarter wave tower are both heading right for this area. On the aircraft was David Maxson with his Anritsu spectrum analyzer and a shielded Scott loop antenna that is used for FCC approved measurements of occupied bandwidth, the NRSC measurements we have to do every year. And the FIM was being operated by John Garrett, who is one of my associates who's been working on this project for a long time. I was not on the aircraft. I was at a location halfway between the two antennas. You probably can't see now the picture on the screen, but whatever. Hang on, let me stop share here. That's here. Boom. So now, I was parked in a big parking lot right there, 4.25 miles from each of these antennas with an FIM 21 on a tripod. And during the time that they were measuring, I was monitoring the station that they were measuring to make sure that it was on the air at full power. The signal strength that it was measuring from the HEBA was 5.9 millivolts per meter constantly. The signal from the quarter wave tower, a 242-foot tower at 970 with a kilowatt on it, was 5.8 millivolts per meter. So we think we've got something that's at least interesting enough to raise people's eyebrows. And I really wanted you folks to see it. You're the first people I've shown this to because we've been together for years in this room and we all know and trust each other. So thank you for watching this.
Grady, on the on YouTube, Philip Flynn says, as a Part 10 107 pilot, you can ask the FAA for a waiver to go above the 500-foot limitation.
Yes, but it takes a lot of time to get, and our drone pilot is, in fact, a licensed pilot. But he said the other thing about this is that there's a regulation that even when you do that, you have to always have your aircraft in sight. And there was a possibility that we wouldn't be able to do that, because if you put something a kilometer in the air that's as small as a drone, you can't see it.
Okay.
So we just decided, I mean, I ended up, the helicopter company that's up here, hang on, way up there, the airport is up here in Norwood. They were very friendly with me. I have no idea why. I was able to rent that helicopter all in for 2 hours for, believe it or not, $2,600. I couldn't believe it. So we're just going to stick with this right now. And that was so inexpensive, and the helicopter guys enjoyed working with us so much. I've got photographs of them out there working with us a week before, making test mountings of our antennas so that we could go away and change our brackets and come back on the day and have it exactly right. They really enjoyed this, because usually the only thing they do is take people in suits to meetings or take people with cameras to go and take photographs.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour here, so I got one or two more I want to show quickly, folks. If you are interested, this has to do with Shively and their new M-Power, which is the beginning of the app for control. It is a encrypted and secure way to look at your site power and eventually transmitters and things. Well, here, I'll let Matthew show you. We are with Matthew Rigdon at Shively Labs
and American Amplifier
Technology. And their new product is M-Power, and it's a remote control system and data delivery system, which is very secure. And tell us about it, would you please?
Yeah, so with our new Empower mobile app, what we're able to do is get you remote access securely to devices in your rack. So we started with a couple of our core products, our electrical contactor.
Well.
Barry?
Yes?
I had a long conversation with that gentleman, and I could fill in just a little if you like.
Sure, please do.
Okay, I've been using Shively products since the dawn of time. So I followed them over to American Amplifier. And by the way, they just did a really good job of replacing my 18-year-old Shively 2-station antenna in Bermuda with a new design. They shipped it, we installed it, and once again, just like Shively usually is, the thing was a perfect match. We didn't have to tweak anything. It just took the power with no reflected power, and the coverage is amazing. That particular product, when you first look at it, they have like a plexiglass cover on this box that's about maybe 18 inches by 2.5 feet and maybe 9 inches deep. And it's got a small 3-phase sized contactor for AC, and it's got circuit boards in it, and it's on the circuit board there are daughter boards that monitor various characteristics of the power. And when it senses that there's a problem, its primary function is to disconnect your load from the switch to protect your equipment from really difficult power feeds. As a radio station, though, it also, if you want to do this, it can be connected up so that it controls your transfer switch for transfer. And then they put 2 of those boxes in, one on each side, to measure your incoming power from the city and to measure your generator power so that it knows what's going on. And as soon as everything is back to normal, it then controls the transfer switch to go back. I had a conversation with them about that and said for lower power facilities, you could in fact use the contactor that's already in your box. You just have to put 2 of them in there, and there is room for it. And they thought that was interesting, because that would be another sales feature if they could do it.
Well, they'll be getting more features to it as they go.
Yeah, well, it looked like they put a great amount of good thought into it.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. One more before we hit the top of the hour, for those of you that have to run away. I hope you don't, but if you do, we started with AI. I'm going to end up with AI here. This is Alex Bonella from InSoft, and well, he'll talk. And here we are with Alex Bonello from InSoft. Alex, what are you doing this year that's nice and interesting?
Well, Barry, we are automating video production for radio studios. So right here I have an Axie console with a camera hooked up to microphone 1 and a second camera hooked up to the guest microphone, which is 2. So as soon as I turn on my microphone here, you will see on the screen that we're sending to social media that my camera pops out as soon as I start talking. And I go live, and as soon as I turn on the guest microphone, it will start doing a split screen between myself and yourself, right? So this way you can automate video production for your radio studio or your podcast studio without needing someone punching buttons.
Very nice. And I understand you now have your interface on a web browser.
That's right, and all is controlled from a web browser. So you can control it locally, you can start recording or do it remotely because it's web-based. You can even control the PDC cameras, move them around, do whatever you may need to do. Yep. And here is the AI mode that it's on, but I can override it whenever I want and switch manually if I want to.
Looks like a great way to automate the video in your room.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's super easy to use, and it's a game changer.
Thank you, Alex.
My pleasure, Barry.
So that was one of a number of systems that you could see on the floor using cameras into a radio studio, and you can use the mechanical switches as he was showing you here, or the AI to make the swapping from video to video. Anyway, that's sort of the high point that I grabbed some pictures of. There's some others out there. I got to see Bob Orban, and we talked about the 50th year of the 8000, or the 54th year of his work, as he puts it. I got to sit down with Frank Foti for a while and talk about the Syndicate of Sound and the Deja Vu that he put together. Got to see Tom King. Got to see Tom Silliman. So a lot of good folks still there. And I could name more names, but I don't know that we want to go on that long.